Good morning and welcome to Presence of Light with Charlie Riverman Bergeron. Just wanted to let you know that this morning I'm on early because of my arrangement to pick up my beloved at the docks in Boston as she returns from a cruise. And as it is, I will be a little late picking her up, but I felt the call was just as important to speak to all of you this week. So that is the reason for this early time. I came up with the word remembering for today's show as a result of a card that I pulled last night. And it's one of those beautiful galactic cards. And so, looks like we have 21, 23 people arriving. So thank you for tuning in and opening your hearts to what I present to you. It's the word remember. And I thought about how many times we are called to remember something. And the card reads as this: remembering. My destiny is to remember my divinity. My free will and God's are one and the same. The affirmation for that is, if we can remember the beings of light and love that we are, then there will be no more prejudice, judgment, control, sadness, separation, and war. Today, I will remember. And good morning, Melissa. Good morning, Julia. Good morning, Joelle. I'm seeing you on the sidebar. Thank you all for appearing. And thank you for opening to remembering. Because remembering is more than what we think it is. For most of us, it's about our memory. And for me, years ago, that was somewhat diminished by a motorcycle accident. And what I recently found out was called a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. And I laughed when I heard that. Because when you see what the world says about us, the scientists, the doctors, we are all being put into these little boxes and categories of what they think. However, what we're all realizing is what they think, what they have thought, and what they have done as a result of that thinking and thought form has been less than beneficial for all life on this planet. And so it's up to us as those beautiful beings of light that we are to start remembering what the truth within us is and not rely so much on that which is called the truth outside of us. So memory is an issue for us humans because we rely on it heavily. But it's like any construct where we're gathering information and storing it somewhere. It's not unlike a computer. And years ago when computers were just starting up, I remember signing up for a school called data control. Now everybody uses the word data. Data, data, it's all the same. It's basically zeros and ones. And so when we collect information in our lives through experience, our physiological experience, as well as our emotional experience, we record that data in the water in our brains. And I'm bringing up water because this morning my first reading was about the memory of water and how water is sacred. Water is what we would probably call a God essence. It's an essence of God. And in that water, memory is stored. And within our bodies, in that water in our bodies, memories are stored. And we're living now in a world where we can see an escalation of control of water. And we see people who are totally ignoring the harm of water, or the, for lack of better words, the poisoning of water. Well, the water is still water. It's 2 parts hydrogen bonded with 1 part oxygen. And if you change that structure, then you no longer have water. So all that's really happening in the pollution and all of this is we are adding all of this garbage to the water. And we're distorting the memory, the truth, the blessing of water. I'm a water advocate. I belong to a group called Loving Waters, where we honor other people who are blessing the water around the world or working with water. And I bring it up because this is where our memory is stored as well. And we have genetic memory as well, which is all about our evolution. And without that genetic memory, we would just recreate ourselves every birth. But there is a memory, a genetic code that passes on through our bloodlines, through the water, again, that belongs to our ancestors. Doesn't matter where you live, what indigenous group of humans you might feel connected to. That genetic coding carries with us. And we need to start remembering that we're not just here right now in this moment for the first time, because we are the carriers, the guardians of the memory of our ancestors. Interesting, as I rambled this morning in my writings about what I was going to say, and then by the time I got here, it was like, woo, I have no clue what I'm going to talk about. But I refer to my notes and look at how it evolved. And so evolution, again, is another big process that we are facing, where if our memories are eradicated, then we no longer have a continuity with the divine presence of who we are. And so the question arose, can we forget the divine presence of who we are? And I'm afraid to answer that because I'd like to say no, but I don't know. And so I wrote this this morning was evolution requires memory, or we repeat certain functions lifetime after lifetime and never get beyond a certain level of existence. It is a part of our genetic coding of DNA. As I deepened into this talk this morning, another memory came up that was, I posted yesterday, and the words were, "Our sovereignty is within us and can only be forgotten, not taken away or destroyed." And I went, whoa, this is too close for comfort. I talk about sovereignty a lot. And what do I mean by sovereignty is our divine sovereignty, that we are the children of that which we call God or Creator, and that each of us are an expression of that through love and through light, and the result is peace and grace. And so what happens if we forget that? What happens if we forget? And what happens if we start to believe something else? A belief is a pathway. We will go down a different path. And the further we get away from who we truly are, the more likely we are to forget who we are. And right now in the world, what we see is for each of us is to remember, go into a state of remembering. Now, that brings up the question, what are you remembering? And that can be very frightful for many of us because we remember not only the good things that have happened to us or who we might be or who we are from an ego perspective, but we also bring through a lot of memories of pain, of loss, of suffering, because we have all experienced this for, as a collective whole called humanity, thousands of years. And that memory of all of that is in the water. Now, I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to try to provide proof of that. It's because I remember it. And I work with that. And when I do water blessings, my purpose is to bless the water so that it returns to what I call, and others call, its original blueprint. Because somewhere it began, and its original blueprint, of course, in scientific terms, is hydrogen and oxygen. But it's more than that. It was a way for all of us, animals, plants, crystals, humans, to be able to interact with each other. And so when we drink a glass of water, that water has been on this planet for thousands, not millions of years. And we're all connected through the water. We may have differences of opinion. We may have different skin colors. We may have different philosophies, religions, languages, but we're all connected through the water. And what the water wants us to remember is our sovereignty. That we're not just animals or plants or insects or birds or whatever we are in form, but we're part of a greater whole, a greater creation that is still creating and shifting and evolving. And not only here in our physical presence, but throughout the universe. It's all shifting and evolving because that was part of the original design. So when I ask you, what are you remembering? I want you to deepen your thoughts and say, okay, I can remember when I was a child, and you can remember such and such and such and such. And I want you to think about that and remember that every single remembrance that you have has made you who you are today. This is your history. But most of it is the history of your ego, of this persona that we create in order to interact with each other here in the third dimension on planet Earth. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a perfect design. It's beautiful. But it's been distorted because we have forgotten. Our memory has been preconditioned or reconditioned to remember only certain things that were in alignment with a collective thought form of humans. And as that collective thought form of humans became more powerful and more powerful, what we see playing out before us now is like a train that's out of control running down a track. And eventually, if it doesn't change its direction or slow down or become self-aware of what it's doing, it will crash and burn. So I don't say that to scare people. I say that for us to remember our sovereignty. What does sovereignty mean for you? Sovereignty is really saying that we have all that we need for everything within us. It's not outside of us. We, as these sovereign beings, interact with what's outside of us and around us. And what's outside of us and around us triggers us. It triggers us through the energy that it presents. And then we respond based on what we remember. And so if we were hurt or if we received happiness, all those memories are there. And the mind goes on search for it. It's like Google search, and it goes and it tries to call this up. If we take that answer that we receive as being all there is to know, there's no other answer, this is the absolute truth, then we're predestined to carry out and repeat whatever that is. So when we remember things, I ask you to take the memory and then say, what age was I? Where was I? What was really happening to me? And most of us have taken a victim role in things. And by all counts of the word victim, we were victimized. Or we were the perpetrator, perhaps. But they're only roles. And we have the power now to look beyond those roles and those actions into our self, our divine self, our heart, and say, wow, why did I do that? Why did that happen? And question all of our memories. And not allow them power over us, but say, wow, I didn't know that, or I can see now where this happened and that happened, and the cause was this. So it happened, but it wasn't because of my sovereign self doing it. It was because it was a reactionary process to energy outside of me. So a lot of our painful memories can be released in that moment. And a lot of our loving memories, which are in alignment with our sovereign self, can be brought forward and said, I want to do more of that. That makes me happy. Happiness is divine. Joy is divine. Joy is who I am. Happiness is who I am. I'm not this sorrowful, self-abusing person. And I'm not saying you are that. I'm just using it as a reference. I know most of you who listen to what I have to say are working through their paths of a karmic relationship. And as I am, I'm not any different than you. I just happen to be remembering a bit more than some and willing to share it with others on a personal level, not as someone who knows more, but as somebody who's going through the same thing you are and trying to figure it out. And perhaps because my right brain was damaged, it may be easier for me to do that. Or some of you say, because it's damaged, you're crazy. And that's okay. I don't take being told I'm crazy as an insult anymore. It has no power over me anymore. And that's where we come to. We come to that place of sovereignty where people may say hurtful things to us or do damaging things. And we can stay within our hearts and look and say, this is their stuff, not mine. And I have the choice to stay in this and take this, or I can eliminate them from my path. Not with harm, with love. I send them with love, but I'm just not going to talk to that person anymore. And if you can, sometimes we can't do that. But in truth, we always can. It's just how important is it to you to regain your sovereignty? So these are things that I'm remembering about sovereignty, because it's a big word and I've struggled with it because the rest of the world looks at it as power and control. Maybe we were taught that in order not to look at it. Say, oh, that's being selfish, that's being rude. Well, that was the spin that I got about it. I didn't realize that it was just being in your divine presence as much as you possibly can while still being in this human body. So I encourage you to look at those two words, but remembering is the key, because when we remember, we get another opportunity to see something that has occurred in our past from a new viewpoint, from a viewpoint in the future. And as we do that, we actually shift the memory to saying, I can create a new memory for my future by not doing that again, or not repeating that, or etc. This is where we call back our power. And this is where we truly become the sovereign beings. Because as we call back our power from all of these things behind us, it's like cutting, I don't like the word cutting cords, but detaching the cords that have been attached to us. So we have some major cords that have been attached to us through life experiences, not only in this lifetime, but previous lifetimes, or if you wish to think of it as your ancestors' lifetimes, and you're carrying them forward. So we work diligently to remove and unplug our connection from all of those things which are distorting us and disturbing us and creating imbalance in us. And then we're left with all these little tiny ones. There's like millions of them. It's like, how am I ever going to get through that? And the key is remembering. Remembering and forgiving and just saying goodbye. You no longer serve me. There is nothing in your energy field that is beneficial to my sovereign self. Sounds simple. It's not. Sounds like you can do it quickly. Not. However, can it be done on some greater level? Yes. And it's up to you and me to pace ourselves, not to anybody else, as to how quickly we want to remove all of these attachments of energy and all of these attachments of thought forms and all of these things that have occurred not only in our lifetime, but our ancestors' lifetimes and our future lifetimes. Because if we don't, they will have to deal with it. So it's beneficial to so many generations that we now start to really question our memories as to how is it affecting me? What is it keeping me? Or what is it doing? Is it benefiting me or is it being a detriment to me? And then making that choice from this place of empowerment. You're powerful, amazing, beautiful beings filled with love and light. And there's no reason why any of us should be beating ourselves up every day. None. Zero. I do it just like everybody else does. And then I go inside, connect to that sovereign self that I am, and say, what is this all about? So what are you remembering is the key question. And look at it. And if you cry, cry. If it's painful, feel the pain. Bless it and release it. Because right now there's so more painful memories being triggered by what's going on around us right now. And you see it playing out, and it's creating hatred, and it's created what did I read in the beginning here? It was creating prejudice, judgment, control, sadness, separation, and war. That's the result. That's the result of not being our sovereign self. So this is the point in our evolution where our sovereignty is being called forth, and we are trying to remember and see what that looks like and feels like. We're all unique. We're all sovereign, and doesn't give us power over each other. We're here to recognize and respect the sovereignty in each other so that it enriches us and each other and reaches out in grace and compassion to others and invites them to do the same. And in that case, it becomes regenerative rather than destructive. So those are my words for this morning. I, bless you all for listening and tuning in, and hope I've presented something to think about over the week. Let's see, I had a couple of readings. I don't know. I'm going to read this one. Bring your ego to the light. Bring your ego to the light in complete freedom, for it defines itself when it encounters life. The ego is the fruit of yesterday, searching for pleasure and satisfaction, rejecting what it dislikes constantly and obsessively. By simply becoming conscious of it, its energy is dissipated. With each encounter, it's weakened and loses its hold. In this state, it becomes a shadow. Finally, it vanishes, perishes, annulled by integration. From now on, love is present as an intrinsic law. Through it, the being is creative, a sacred transformation. With a light attention, we experience full consciousness, human as divinity, in natural simplicity. I want you all to experience natural simplicity because you are the light of the world. You are the love. You are the peace. And with that, my dear friends around the world, I send you blessings of peace, light, and love from my heart to yours, and the blessing of your waters. I love you. I thank you. I respect you. May you be well, and until next week, enjoy whatever you're doing, and remember, you are much more than you think you are. And with that, I'm complete. Bye-bye.